Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're like most people, you probably think you have a pretty solid grasp on the words you use every day.
Especially the simple ones, right?
Exactly, the ones you see in the supermarket. But today, we're going to prove that true fluency, that really native-sounding precision, isn't about knowing some obscure jargon.
No, not at all. It's about mastering the 42 most common items in the produce aisle.
We are going deep, really deep into the fine print of everyday vocabulary.
That's absolutely right. And our source material for this deep dive, it's this wonderfully focused language lesson. It's all about British English, vocabulary, grammar, and crucially, pronunciation.
For these 42 items, fruits, vegetables, and nuts.
And it's kind of a shortcut, really. A shortcut to spotting and fixing those little subtle mistakes in phonetics or grammar that they instantly mark someone as a non-native speaker.
So our mission for you, the listener, is kind of twofold. First, we're going to arm you with a richer, more accurate vocabulary for daily life.
For things you see all the time.
All the time. But second, and this is the really important part, you're going to master the specific pronunciation quirks that just instantly elevate your speech.
We're talking about stress patterns, silent letters.
Things that move you past just being understood and into that realm of real conversational confidence.
Precision is the name of the game here. When you really get into a language, you find out pretty quickly that the most frustrating things are often the smallest, most common words.
It's so true.
So we're not just, reading a list of 42 items. We're actually analyzing the hidden rules that govern them. We've structured this to start with a foundational grammar point that honestly trips up even advanced learners.
And
Then we'll go category by category. We'll highlight the pronunciation traps, some of the regional differences, and even these weird categorical debates that just go to show that language is, well, it's more art than science.
Before we jump into, the apple and the banana, the source material made a really interesting case for the whole context of language learning itself. It really stressed how important a structured approach is if you want to get this kind of deep, accurate mastery.
And that context is so vital.
Yeah.
It really is. Because it sets the stage for why all this precision matters so much. I mean, the lesson we're pulling from, it came out of an environment that was supported by the online language school, Lingota.
Ah, okay.
And it really shows the value of structured guided learning. It's just a more reliable path to getting things right, rather than just sort of passively consuming content and hoping it sticks.
So when we say structured learning, what are we talking about? The source mentioned flexibility, but built on top of quality teaching.
Right. So Lingota offers lessons in English, but also Spanish, French, German, and even a specialized business English.
And the flexibility for
The
it.
availability. They operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So it's totally location independent. As long as you've got a stable internet connection, you can be anywhere in the world.
That's a huge deal.
It is. And that convenience is, it's matched by real quality control. The teachers are all native speakers. They're qualified. And when you're trying to master something like a subtle British vowel shift or a tricky silent consonant, the exact stuff we're talking about today, having a trained native ear guiding you is just, well, it's invaluable.
And they follow a structured curriculum, right? It's not just random lessons.
No, it's highly organized. It's an internationally recognized curriculum.
You mentioned the international curriculum. The source specifically brought up something called CERF certificates, C-E-R-F. What does that actually mean? And why should someone aiming for, say, C1 or C2 proficiency care about it?
Okay, that is a critical piece of jargon we should probably define. CERF stands for the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages.
Right.
It's basically an international standard. It's used all over the world to describe how good you are at a language. It goes from A1 for total beginners up through the B levels for intermediate, all the way to C2.
Which is mastery.
Which is mastery. And why should you care? Because if your curriculum is tied to CERF, you know you're on a defined, incremental, and proven path. It just takes the guesswork out of it. It makes sure every new word, every grammar rule is building logically on the last one. It leads to, competence you can actually certify.
So it's a clear pathway to measurable proficiency that's recognized globally. It's not just a collection of classes.
Precisely. And the material also pointed out the sheer breadth of choice they have, over 1,000 different classes.
1,000.
Yeah. So that means you, the learner, can actually tailor your studies to what you need. Maybe it's negotiation vocabulary for your job, or maybe you just want words related to your hobbies, like cooking or travel. The learning feels immediately relevant because you're choosing the content.
That makes a lot of sense. And since we're focusing on mastering these 42 words today, for anyone who wants to continue on that kind of structured journey, the source did mention Lingoda has a free trial class option.
They do.
And there was a specific code shared as well. If you sign up using the code LUCY8, that's LUCY8, you get a 25% discount on any package for the first month.
Which is a pretty powerful incentive if mastering these words is just your starting point.
It certainly is.
It really sets the stage for why this kind of precision is so important.
Okay, let's put that context aside for a moment and dive into the language rules themselves. We're starting with Section 1, the grammatical deep dive. And if you are serious about getting past intermediate English, this is probably the single biggest tripwire in the produce aisle.
It really is.
Countable versus uncountable nouns, with a laser focus on fruit versus vegetable.
This distinction is a genuine stumbling block. I mean, it's where so many language learners, even ones who've been studying for years, they just fall down. If you can correct this one error, it signals a really deep understanding of English's subtle rules.
So let's start with the easy one, vegetable. The source sets this up as a very straightforward, countable noun.
Clean and simple.
Right. You look at one thing. A single carrot, a lone potato.
Yeah.
It's a vegetable. You look at a whole basket of them, you can easily pluralize them. They are vegetables.
Exactly. The rule is standard. You add an "es" to the end for the plural. It works just like bottle becomes bottles or shoe becomes shoes.
Simple enough.
The original lesson used a great example. The question was, do you like this vegetable? And the response, no, I prefer these vegetables. It follows the most basic English grammar convention.
Okay. But then we get to fruit, the troublemaker.
Yes, the exceptional category. This is where we need to slow down a bit. Fruit is tricky because it sort of lives in this grammatical gray area.
What do you mean by gray area?
Well, we usually think of nouns as either countable, like apples, or uncountable, like water or air. Fruit is, well, it's semi-uncountable.
Semi-uncountable.
We treat it as a mass noun when we're talking about it generally, but as a countable noun when we get specific. And that little fluctuation in usage is the crucial nuance that trips everyone up.
Okay, so let's break down the general rule first. Why do we usually treat fruit as a mass noun?
We do that when we're talking about the category or the commodity or just the collective idea of fruit. A good way to think of it is like money or equipment.
Ah, right. You don't say, I have 3 monies.
Exactly. Or I need to buy some equipment for the gym. You say some equipment. It's the collective form. The clearest example from the source is when you walk into a supermarket. The sign says fruit and vegetables, singular, not fruits and vegetables.
Okay, that makes sense. So if I walk into my kitchen and there's a big bowl full of apples and oranges and bananas, I would say, wow, look at all that fruit.
Precisely. You're referring to the collection. Or if you're talking about your diet, you'd say, I'm trying to eat more fruit. You wouldn't say, I'm trying to eat more fruits unless you meant something very specific.
Right. But let me play devil's advocate here for a second, because this is where it gets confusing for an intermediate learner. Looking at that same bowl with the apples, bananas, grapes, I might actually say, wow, look at all the different fruits here. Is that wrong? It feels like native speakers blur that line all the time. Why can't I just default to fruits?
That is the perfect question. And it leads us right to the exception to the rule. You are absolutely right. The plural form, fruits, is grammatically okay, but its use is very, very context specific.
Okay.
We only use fruits when we are deliberately emphasizing distinct varieties or kinds, or maybe in a very formal or academic context, like talking about horticulture.
So the minute my intention is to distinguish between the apple and the plum, then I can use the plural. I'm counting the varieties, not the mass.
That's it, exactly. You're counting the types. If you're comparing, say, the produce from different climates, you might talk about tropical fruits versus temperate fruits. The source hammered this point home with a really useful example. It's a great one to learn to show you another rule. I ate 3 different fruits this morning.
Ah, because of the word different.
The context, the number 3 and the word different, it forces the plural fruits. Without that specific context of variety, the general rule applies. Use the singular fruit.
Wow. That's such a subtle distinction. Using fruit for the category and fruits only for the varieties, that is a huge marker of advanced proficiency. It's a real aha moment for our listener.
It is. If you can use that correctly, you are signaling that you've really grasped the subtle grammatical undercurrents of everyday language. It's a true difference maker.
Okay, now that we have that grammatical foundation, let's start applying it. We're moving into Section 2. the juicy details. We've got 17 fruits to cover, focusing on that British English pronunciation and the stress patterns.
Right, and I really encourage you, the listener, to pause and actually say these words out loud. Repeat them. Focus on where the energy, the stress falls. That's what the original lesson suggested, and it's great advice.
Let's do it. Let's unpack the foundational list first, looking for any common missteps. We have apple, banana, orange, lemon, lime, grape, plum, kiwi, pear.
Okay, let's pause there. Most of those are pretty straightforward, but we're really listening for the rhythm that defines the dialect. Take banana again.
Banana.
In British English, the stress is cleaner and a bit shorter on that second syllable. Boo, N-A-H, no. It's a different feel from the longer A sound you might hear in North America. Mastering that vowel and stress is key.
Okay, continuing the list. Strawberry, blueberry,
Fig. And with strawberry, make sure that stress is right at the front. Strawberry. A nice clean emphasis on that first syllable.
All right, now we move to the items the source sort of implied were a bit less beginner, maybe more exotic, or just longer words that are easy to mispronounce.
Definitely.
We have pomegranate,
Mhm.
pineapple, and dragon fruit.
Pomegranate. That's a notorious one.
It's just long.
It's the length and the structure. The stress pattern here is absolutely essential if you want to sound native. It's pomegranate.
Right on the first syllable.
A really heavy stress on that first syllable, po. If you misplace it, if you put it on the third syllable, which learners sometimes do, the word becomes almost impossible for a native ear to understand.
And what about the other two? Pineapple and dragon fruit seem a bit simpler.
They are, phonetically, but they're a necessary part of a modern vocabulary now, aren't they? Dragon fruit is a really high utility word, with it being so much more available globally. And for pineapple, just make sure the stress is firmly on pineapple. Simple, but you've got to get it right.
The list then takes a really nice human turn for item number 16. The creator of the source material specifically called out their own personal favorite.
Which was watermelon.
Watermelon.
It's a wonderful little human touch, isn't it? And it's a fantastic word to practice. It's got 3 syllables, needs a clean rhythm, make sure the stress is right up front. Water-a-termelon, not watermelon.
Right.
And, linking a useful word like that to a personal memory, it really helps make the pronunciation stick.
And finally, item number 17, which is our perfect bridge into the next category. We have the tomato.
Ah, the great debate.
The source explicitly said there is a debate on this, whether it is a fruit or a vegetable.
And this debate is really the crux of the linguistic insight here.
Yeah.
I mean, botanically, we know the answer, don't we? It's a fruit. It develops from the flower's ovary.
Right. But in the kitchen.
But in culinary terms, in everyday life, it's universally treated as a vegetable.
So let's analyze that conflict for a second. Why does the culinary classification so often win out over the scientific one in our common language?
Because language reflects how we use things. It reflects our culture, not just rigid science. The culinary difference is all about flavor profile and application.
Sure.
Fruits are generally sweet, right? High in fructose, you eat them raw as a snack or for dessert. Vegetables are savory. You use them in main courses. You often cook them. The tomato, just like a cucumber or a pepper, is savory. It's low in sugar compared to a true fruit, and we use it as a cooking ingredient.
So by including this debate, the source is reminding us that a word's meaning can be context dependent.
Exactly. The moment you walk into a kitchen, a tomato is a vegetable. The moment you walk into a botany class, it's a fruit. It's all about context.
That sets us up perfectly. It shows that classification isn't always rigid, and that's a great way to move into the main crop. We're shifting now to section 3, the core crop. We've got 18 vegetables and some really crucial British English regional specifics to get into.
Okay, let's start with the first 13 foundational items. Again, focusing on any pronunciations that might be tricky or different from other English norms. We have carrot, potato, cucumber, aubergine.
Let's stop right there. Aubergine, that is a primary dialect indicator, isn't it?
It really is. If you say eggplant, you're signaling American English.
Right.
With aubergine, we need to make sure the stress is on that first syllable, aubergine. And that first syllable should sound like the letter O in British English.
Okay, continuing on. Artichoke, onion, garlic, avocado, asparagus.
Let's look at avocado for a second. It's a 3-syllable word. It's everywhere now, and it gets misstressed all the time. The energy has to be on that second syllable. Avocado.
Avocado.
Right. If you rush it or stress the first syllable, it just sounds a bit clumsy. And artichoke is similar, stress on the first syllable, nice and clear.
What about asparagus? That's a long, kind of Latin-sounding word. It can be intimidating.
Asparagus just needs careful vowel management. The stress is squarely on the second syllable, asparagus. The key is to avoid squashing those last few syllables together. You need to clearly articulate the G sound before the final oos. Practice it slowly. It helps establish the right rhythm for a longer word.
Okay, list continues. Broccoli, mushroom, radish, and pumpkin.
All fairly standard.
Now we need to hit the regional differences the source flagged as being really important points of confusion. Specifically, pepper versus chili.
Yes, a classic source of cross-cultural mix-ups. The source was very clear on this. In British English, pepper and chili are two distinct things. They have different heat profiles, different uses.
So in the UK, if I say pepper, what am I talking about?
You are generally referring to a bell pepper or a capsicum. You know, the large, mild, sweet vegetable that comes in red, green, yellow.
But the source immediately pointed out that this isn't universal, which can lead to problems when you travel.
Exactly. They noted that in other English-speaking countries, a chili might very well be called a pepper. Think jalapeno pepper or chili pepper. It's often the default term. So if you're traveling, we're talking to someone from outside the UK, there's potential for a serious misunderstanding if you ask for something spicy, using the mild British term.
That awareness is so important for our listener. If you're learning British English, you have to flag these dialect differences. So what was the solution? Did the source suggest a way to avoid this confusion?
They offered a very simple fix, the compound noun chili pepper. It just removes all ambiguity. If you're talking about ingredients, using chili pepper for the spicy one and bell pepper or sweet pepper for the mild one is the way to be clear globally. It forces you to recognize that fluency isn't just about being correct. It's about being aware of context in a globalized world.
Okay, next up is a huge pronunciation trap that's all about plurality. The infamous P's. It's a tiny word, but a massive phonetic difference.
This is one of the most critical pronunciation points on the entire list. I'm
Yeah.
not exaggerating. If you are talking about the little green vegetable, the plural peas must be pronounced with the voiced Z sound at the end. Page.
We should feel a vibration.
Yes, you should feel a buzz on your tongue and in your throat. Piz.
And the reason this tiny distinction is so important is to avoid confusion with another word.
Exactly. That voiced Z sound is what separates it from the word peace, as in global tranquility, the absence of war. That word is pronounced with a voiceless S sound.
No vibration.
No vibration at all. The source was very clear. You have to differentiate P's with a Z from peace with an S. If you don't make that phonetic shift, you might be asking for a side dish and accidentally starting a profound geopolitical discussion.
And mastering that one little sound is a huge, immediate signal of advanced language skill.
It really is. It shows you're listening at a very deep level.
Speaking of detail, let's talk about item number 14 on the vegetable list, gherkin.
The gherkin. The source gave a very specific description for this one. It's a pickled cucumber.
Right.
Specifically, it often means a smaller type of cucumber that's been pickled whole.
But the truly memorable part was its application. The gherkin, according to the source, is important.
If you want a really good burger.
I love that they framed it with such specific utility.
And me too. It instantly defines its culinary role. It's not just some pickled cucumber. It is that essential, acidic, slightly sweet and sour thing that gives you the contrast and texture you need for a truly top-tier burger. That practical application makes the word unforgettable.
It really does. Finally, rounding out the vegetable list at item 18, we have another one of these category ambiguities, ginger.
Yes, the source included ginger, but with a key qualifier, a bit like the tomato. It said, perhaps a not quite a vegetable, but still important.
So here we go again, another case where our conversational language diverges from the botanical reality.
Exactly. Botanically, ginger is a rhizome, which is a root stem. We use it as a spice or a flavoring. But linguistically, you know, when you're at the grocery store or writing an ingredients list, it functionally sits right alongside the other vegetables and roots you use in savory cooking.
So this just reinforces that theme that common language prioritizes utility over strict science.
That is the core lesson. Language is a tool for communication. If you use it like a vegetable, you tend to categorize it like one. The learner just has to recognize that these boundaries are flexible and they're context dependent. The way we classify tomato and ginger is a perfect reminder that just naming something can involve a bit of cultural and culinary negotiation.
Fantastic. Okay, so we've covered 17 fruits, 18 vegetables, that's 35 items. We've dealt with some huge grammatical and phonetic traps. Now for the last 7 items, section 4, going nuts. And this section is really heavy on specific pronunciation traps and, wonderfully, some personal anecdotes.
Nuts can be very tricky. Learners see the spelling, and they just try to pronounce every single letter, and that leads to mistakes. Let's start with the foundational list, and again, listen for the syllable stress. Walnut, Brazil nut, peanut, hazelnut, and macadamia.
Macadamia is one of those longer words where the stress placement is just non-negotiable, isn't it?
It absolutely is. The stress has to fall on that second, macadamia.
Academia.
Right. If you put the stress on the third syllable, it just sounds wrong. Also, for Brazil nut, make sure the stress is on the second syllable for Brazil and that the L is clearly said, unlike our final example.
Okay, let's get to the two items that the source really wanted us to focus on for memory. First up, pistachio.
The pistachio. This might be the most brilliant example of using a mnemonic device in the whole lesson. The source creator shared that Pistachio was the name of their rescue cat.
Right, but it gets even more specific, which is what really locks it in your memory.
It does. It wasn't just that Pistachio was the cat's name. The cat still lives in Spain with my ex-boyfriend's family.
That is so specific.
The sheer specificity, Spain, rescue cat, ex-boyfriend, it creates this rich, detailed story. It's a powerful memory anchor. So when you hear or say the word pistachio, you're likely to remember that whole complex anecdote, which helps you remember the correct rhythm. Pistachio.
That's the power of narrative in learning. But now let's move to the grand finale, the single most important pronunciation challenge on this entire list, almond.
We have to spend some serious time on this one. Almond is a phonetic tripwire. It is a word that instantly tells you whether someone is fluent or if they're still just translating English spelling directly into sound.
So what are the common mistakes? What did the source tell us to avoid?
The source was explicit. It warned against pronouncing it as elmund or almond. In other words, you have to avoid fully articulating that L sound that you see written there.
Because the L is silent.
The L is completely silent. The correct pronunciation is almond. The sound is elmond or an errand. That middle consonant just vanishes in fluent native speech. If you pronounce the L, you are signaling that you are reading the word, not speaking it naturally.
It's such a high utility phrase, and getting it right immediately signals language precision. I'm going to challenge you, the listener, to practice that word right now. Go on, almond. Get rid of that L.
Mastering the silent L in words like almond or salmon is a huge phonetic milestone. It's a fantastic test case for fluency. Just one word, but it carries so much weight and shows your ear has adapted to native speech patterns.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our 42 items. We've covered a huge part of the grocery store, from the super common to the slightly exotic, all while focusing on that specific British English tone and grammatical precision.
Let's just quickly summarize the core takeaways. Because while the list of 42 is great, these specific little nuggets are the things that will really stick with you from this deep dive.
Right, first up, the grammar of fruit. Remember, fruit for the general category.
And fruits only when you're specifying different varieties. That one distinction is a proficiency game changer.
Second, that regional awareness around pepper and chili. Knowing that those terms are dialect dependent is just crucial for global communication.
And when in doubt, just use the clarification term chili pepper for the spicy one.
Third, the pronunciation traps. Specifically that you absolutely need that voiced ziz sound for the plural peas to distinguish it from peace.
And finally, the biggest one of all, almond. Internalize that silent ul. If you can master almond, you are well on your way to sounding truly native.
The source material that guided us through this was all rooted in structured learning, which is a good reminder that focused, precise practice really does deliver immediate results. We hope this deep dive can act as a kind of springboard for your own language journey.
Indeed. And for those who are interested in that kind of structured environment that produced this lesson, don't forget that promotional code. Lingoda offers that 25% discount for the first month of any package with the code Lucy8.
The source creator also specifically mentioned ways you could connect with them on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you want to follow up on similar lessons. It really emphasizes that language learning is a continuous, communal thing.
You know, this whole deep dive, which was kicked off by simple things like the tomato and ginger, has really been an exploration of how fluid classification in language can be.
So if language shapes our reality, how does having precision in that classification, knowing when to say fruit versus fruits, or recognizing that vegetable is a flexible boundary, how does that fundamentally change how we perceive the most common foods we interact with every single day?
Think about what that implies. We rely on linguistic categories far more than scientific ones in our daily lives. So if a tomato is botanically a fruit, but culinarily a vegetable, and ginger is somewhere between a spice and a vegetable, what other everyday items are we miscategorizing or simplifying just because we don't know the grammatical or scientific nuances behind them?
That's a great question.
The ability to categorize things and communicate those distinctions accurately, that's the first step toward true mastery, whether it's in vocabulary or, in life itself.
Something profound to mull over the next time you're building a really good burger that needs that tangy, essential gherkin. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the produce aisle. We hope you feel significantly more informed, phonetically precise, and definitely better prepared to pronounce that almond.
Practice makes perfect. We'll see you next time.